Why the United States is losing diplomatic power and influence in Latin America. For many years, the United States has held a position of influence and power in Latin America, shaping the political, economic, and cultural landscape of the region through its policies and actions. However, in recent times, there has been a growing sense that the United States is losing its grip on Latin America, as the region becomes increasingly resistant to outside interference and begins to chart its own course. So why is this happening? What forces are driving the decline of American influence in Latin America, and what are the implications for the future of the region and the world? These are complex and multifaceted questions, and in order to answer them, we must delve deeper into the history and current state of Latin America and consider the many factors that are shaping its present and future. Here are 20 clear reasons that explain the decline of US influence in Latin America. So, let's begin. Number 1. The US has a history of intervention and interference in Latin American countries, which has eroded trust and goodwill towards the US in the region. The US has intervened militarily in Latin American countries more than 30 times between 1898 and 1994, according to a study by the Council on Hemispheric Affairs. This history of intervention has contributed to widespread mistrust and resentment towards the US in the region. Number 2. China and Russia have been increasing their economic and political influence in Latin America, providing an alternative to US hegemony. China is now the top trading partner of several Latin American countries, including Brazil, Chile, and Peru. Russia has also increased its presence in the region through arms sales and military exercises with regional allies. This has challenged US influence in the region and provided an alternative to US-led economic and political initiatives. Number 3. The US has often prioritized its own interests over those of Latin American countries, leading to resentment and mistrust. For example, the US has been criticized for its support of military dictatorships and authoritarian regimes in the region, often prioritizing its own strategic and economic interests over the rights and welfare of the people of Latin America. This has contributed to widespread disillusionment with US policies and actions in the region. Number 4. The US has been unable to effectively address issues such as immigration and drug trafficking, undermining its credibility and authority in the region. Despite its effort to address these issues, the US has been unable to stem the flow of illegal drugs and undocumented immigrants from Latin America. This has weakened its credibility and undermines its ability to lead regional initiatives on these important issues. Number 5. The US has not always been seen as a reliable partner, as it has been known to withdraw support or change its stance on key issues. For example, the US has been criticized for its inconsistent stance on the crisis in Venezuela, where it has at times supported opposition leaders and at other times sought to engage with the government of President Maduro. This lack of consistency has damaged the US's reputation as a reliable partner in the region. Number 6. The rise of left-wing governments in Latin America has challenged US influence, as these governments often reject US policies and seek closer ties with other countries. In recent years, several left-wing governments have come to power in Latin America, including in Argentina, Bolivia, and Brazil. These governments have often rejected US-led initiatives and sought closer ties with other countries such as China and Russia, challenging US influence in the region. Number 7. The US has been criticized for its inaction on climate change and environmental degradation, which are major concerns for many Latin American countries. Latin America is one of the most vulnerable regions in the world to the impacts of climate change, including sea level rise, drought, and extreme weather events. Despite this, the US has been slow to act on climate change and has often prioritized economic interest over the need to address environmental degradation. This has damaged its credibility and authority in the region. Number 8. The US has failed to address economic inequality and poverty in Latin America, leading to widespread disillusionment with US-led economic policies. Despite the growth of some economies in the region, inequality and poverty remain widespread in Latin America. The US has been unable to address these issues, leading to widespread disillusionment with US-led economic policies and initiatives. Number 9. The US has not always been able to provide the necessary support and resources to address security challenges in the region, such as organized crime and terrorism. Security challenges such as organized crime and terrorism continue to plague many countries in Latin America. The US has not always been able to provide the necessary support and resources to address these challenges, undermining its credibility and ability to lead regional initiatives on security. Number 10. The US has been slow to adapt to changing political dynamics and shifting global power balances, allowing other countries to gain ground in the region. The global political and economic landscape has been undergoing significant changes in recent years, with the rise of new powers such as China and the decline of traditional Western powers. The US has been slow to adapt to these changes, allowing other countries to gain ground in the region and challenge its influence. Number 11. The US has been unable to address human rights violations and other abuses committed by its allies in Latin America, damaging its reputation and moral authority. Despite its rhetoric on human rights and democracy, the US has often been criticized for its support of governments and regimes that have committed human rights abuses in Latin America. This has damaged its reputation and moral authority in the region. Number 12. The US has been perceived as supportive of authoritarian regimes and oppressive governments in the region, undermining its commitment to democracy and human rights. In the past, the US has supported authoritarian regimes and dictatorships in Latin America, often in pursuit of its own strategic and economic interests. This has undermined its commitment to democracy and human rights in the eyes of many in the region. Number 13. The US has been unable to address the root causes of migration from Latin America, leading to continued instability and insecurity in the region. Despite efforts to address the issue of migration from Latin America, the root causes of migration, such as poverty, violence, and lack of economic opportunity, remain unaddressed. This has contributed to continued instability and insecurity in the region. Number 14. The US has been criticized for its protectionist trade policies, which have hurt Latin American economies and led to resentment towards the US. The US has pursued protectionist trade policies such as tariffs on imports from Latin America, which have hurt the economies of many countries in the region. This has led to resentment towards the US and challenged its economic leadership in the region. Number 15. The US has been slow to address issues such as corruption and lack of accountability, which are major obstacles to democracy and development in the region. Corruption and lack of accountability remain major challenges in many countries in Latin America. The US has been slow to address these issues, undermining its credibility and ability to lead regional initiatives on good governance and the rule of law. Number 16. The US has been unable to provide a viable alternative to the current global political and economic order, which has been dominated by Western powers for centuries. Many countries in Latin America have been seeking alternatives to the current global political and economic order, which has been dominated by Western powers for centuries. The US has been unable to provide a viable alternative, leading to a loss of influence and credibility in the region. Number 17. The US has been unable to address the growing influence of non-state actors, such as transnational criminal organizations which pose a threat to regional stability and security. Transnational criminal organizations, such as drug cartels and human trafficking networks, have grown in power and influence in recent years, threatening regional stability and security. The US has been unable to address this challenge, undermining its credibility and ability to lead regional initiatives on security. Number 18. The US has been unable to address the impact of technology and the digital economy in Latin American societies, leading to a loss of relevance and influence. The rapid growth of technology and the digital economy has had a profound impact on Latin American societies, transforming the way people live, work, and communicate. The US has been unable to address these changes, leading to a loss of relevance and influence in the region. Number 19. The US has been unable to address the rising tide of populism and nationalism in the region, which has eroded support for US-led policies and initiatives. Populism and nationalism have been on the rise in many countries in Latin America, challenging US-led policies and initiatives. The US has been unable to address this trend, leading to a loss of support and credibility in the region. Number 20. The US has been unable to address the changing demographics and cultural identities of Latin America, which are increasingly diverse and complex. Latin America is a region of great cultural and linguistic diversity, with many indigenous and Afro-Latinx communities. The US has been unable to address these changing demographics and cultural identities, leading to a loss of relevance and influence in the region. That is all for today. We hope you enjoyed our video and learned a thing or two about the evolution of politics and power in the American continent. If you want to know more about value creation in the world, just click on the link in the video description. Subscribe to our newsletter to download your copy once we launch our book, The Ways of Capitalism. Please share this video if you like the content and subscribe.